So I'll pose this question to you because I heard it all weekend from all the people down in Wildwood, which is the Eagles 10-1 slide into the ocean. Is that the Phillies? Or is it deja vu?
Well, I don't think so. I have a hard time seeing this team all out collapsing. And they're very different sports. They play 162. What do they play in NFL? 17. It's like, the amount of games is not even comparable. But that said, I understand why people are concerned. You'd like to see them playing a better brand of ball, and it's we're getting into mid-August, and it's time to do that because you want to have the momentum and that memory muscle in place when you go into October. I just don't think we're going to see that level of a collapse because I think this team is just too good for it. I think they've built a really good lead. I mean, that may have sapped some of their edge, some of their urgency, but 6 teams are going to make the playoffs in the National League. They have a 7.5 game lead on the Braves, an 8 game lead on the Mets. Hey, anything can happen, but I just don't see them losing that lead. But they better go into October with feeling good and playing good, or else you could be a quick out like in 2011, like happened last year in games 6 and 7. So I still think they're okay. But that said, since they took off for London, they're 5 games under 500. Yeah, not good enough. I mean, in the second half, they had the second worst record in baseball. Not good enough. As a matter of fact, way not good enough. What are they? They're way better than they've shown lately. It's really, I thought Harper yesterday after the game, he kind of looked like he had gone through the ringer. And when he was asked about the Diamondbacks, he said, they ain't scared. They play the game the right way. I almost felt like he was message sending to his own clubhouse, like, hey, let's start messing around here and start taking it to people.
Let's go. And, it's interesting. Before I go to Mr. Panic here next to me, I do want to say this, and we've covered this game for a long time, and you see it, right? Like you see these moments, man. I've seen them have horrible stuff. Go back to 2 years ago, the Cubs series, when they were losing, like they were playing awful baseball, and then that one day in St. Louis in a wild card game, the fortunes changed. Baseball, that's why I can't freak out in early August, on August 12th, because I just seen this time and time again, man. I've seen that, it could be go in 08 when the Astros series and they got hot, right? Like you've seen at different points in September kind of click or not click.
Well, you mentioned that game in St. Louis, that wild card game. One inning changed the entire month.
Yeah.
I mean, they really didn't hit that entire series. It was only 2 games, but up until that last inning. And the manager of the Cardinals, Carlos Marmol, he sticks with Ryan Helsley, who can't throw a strike. Next thing you know, Segura flicks one into right field. And it's a merry-go-round around the bases, and all of a sudden momentum is back, and they carry it right into the World Series. So, yeah, one at-bat can change things.
And I remember how bad it looked. It felt awful leading up to it because the Cubs were awful and they swept the Phillies. Well, the Phillies needed to just clinch the playoff spot, and they kept struggling, and they got beat up by the Cubs.
Yeah, that was a terrible series. I was at that series in Wrigley Field, and they were having all kinds of trouble. And then did they go to Washington right after that?
Yes.
They were sitting through all these rain delays.
Yes.
And then
yes.
Schwarber had a couple big games, maybe in a doubleheader, and they kind of righted the ship.
Yeah, they put a doubleheader on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was when, look, I'm not a big fan of panic, but you were like, really, this is the season here. It's do or die. I don't see that we're there yet, but I do think, and I don't know that we will get there for the lead they've built, but I do think 1 or 2 performances can help turn things around. It was right about this time last year when Trey Turner got going. It would be really good if he got going here. He's lost like 50 points on his batting average since the start of, since they came back from the All-Star break. When he's going good offensively, has an infectious quality through the whole lineup. Be really good to see him get going here. Bullpen needs to throw more strikes. We've talked about it a lot. This is baseball. Teams go through funks, but I will acknowledge you have every right to be frustrated, every right to be ticked off, because this funk, this struggle, this inconsistency, it's gone on way too long for a team of this quality. Way too long.
All right, so Dr. Panic next to me. He is Peter Panic. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, he's saying everything that I'm thinking. We talked to Jim like 2 weeks ago, and you said, if this goes on for another week, it's time to start being concerned. And we're about 10 days past that. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like a funk to me at this point. We're a third of the season. They're 24-30. I mean, that's a long stretch. And they're leaking out of every aspect of the game right now, it feels like. And
it's sort of been going on for like 55 games when they left from London. I still think in the big picture, they're in good shape. 6 teams are going to make the playoffs. I don't see them being caught in the division. I know it's happened before, but I just don't see them being caught in the division. I think they're too veteran. I just don't think the quality of the division is good enough. The Braves are hurt. You just don't know about the Mets. I think they're going to get there, and anything can happen once you get there. But I understand your frustration. You would like to see them play better.
It feels like their edge, like they've lost a little like mental edge a bit. Like their vibe is weird.
I totally agree with you that they've lost some edge. Maybe some complacency set in with the big lead, with not being challenged, with everything going smoothly. This team's been very resilient the last couple of years. We hear that cliche all the time. They overcame injuries to get to the World Series. They had a lot of resilience last year. It's time to show some now, just in simply digging yourself out of this funk. It's time to show, when Harper said yesterday about the Diamondbacks, they don't scare. I've seen a little loss of edge in the Phillies and maybe a little tentativeness, and I think it was his way of saying, let's get that back here. So I think you're right on saying they have lost some edge. It's almost obvious, and they can get it back, and it's time to get it back. They got 2 teams coming up here that they should knock the snot out of, and They need to. They're going to be big crowds, but I wouldn't. If these crowds get frustrated, they start losing.
I
wouldn't blame them for being frustrated. It's a situation where they need. Look at with runners in scoring position. In Arizona, they were like 7 for 34. It was awful. There's opportunities there. You got to cash in. Like to see them get back playing kind of loose, not thinking too much. But sometimes you do think too much when you're really struggling. It can weigh on you. I just think they need to go out tomorrow night and score a bunch of runs early and relax and just kind of let it happen. But it's time they got their edge back.
Well, what's going to really tell the tale going into September, 3 at Atlanta, 3 at Kansas City, who's nasty, 3 at home against the Stros, and 4 at home against Atlanta. And that takes you to September 1st. So that's 13 games that will define our feelings going into September.
Yeah, I'd like to see the starting pitching, especially the big 3, look like they did early on. I'd like to see Trey Turner really get it going.
Yeah, and JT. JT needs to get it going.
Yeah, and he's a streaky guy, and they could really use his bat. Right now you're looking at like after 4th or 5th in the lineup, they're not getting much.
Yeah. And
you need to get more from the balance of your lineup. I kind of wonder if Rob would shake a little something up here, coming home after kind of after a very difficult series in Arizona where they didn't do enough. He's known for being very steady. This is a very steady organization, but I do think you can sometimes put a little cattle prod on some people in action. I don't think you have to berate them or tip anything over in the clubhouse or smash any furniture, but sometimes somebody sits, you move something around, bring in a new body, it can wake some people up. So we'll see.
We all silly like the mayor.